Hey there, Sebastian's back again. Sorry for the long delay. Life just throws a few loopholes into things. So I've been doing some consulting work with some people, and I thought on the kit, and I thought, well, if I'm making some changes for them, it'll update me on a few things, and I can then do a tutorial on the things that we've been working on. So one thing that people have been asking a lot is the user interface, how to change the user interface in the kit. And there'll be two different aspects of it. The start screen, character creation, user registration, logging onto servers, and the second part would be the editing the things for the in-game, so inventory, pop-ups over the characters, character sheets, all that sort of stuff. So we'll have a look at the first part. The first part all belongs into one scene called 01 Home in the demo, or 01 Home MMO or something like that. It contains logins, character registration, character creation, all of that. Now be aware, if you're doing an MMO, most of the time you're probably going to be using just the 01 Home to test on your own local machine. So I really wouldn't bother making massive changes to the home screen. Just make the changes to Home MMO. Unless you're planning to ship a standalone version of it, it's just easier to make the changes in one scene. Because the two scenes are different, MMO scene will also have a server login screen, have a character registration screen. It's very hard to make the changes in one, copy the changes over to the second scene without breaking things. And any bug fixes, they need to be done in two separate scenes. So for the programmers and people just working on the Unity on their own, I just really wouldn't worry about home. Just do the MMO if you're doing an MMO. Otherwise, you'll be obviously testing and using the same scene for release. So first thing, let's just grab that scene out of there, out of the Unity MMORPG folder. We do not want to be editing scenes in that folder, because when you do an upgrade, we'll wipe all of our changes out. And if we look at the scene, you can see it's not particularly pretty. There's not a lot to it. In fact, the screen is completely blank. So the control system for these scenes is held under Canvas Home. Canvas Home has your screen overlay, sizes, and etc. But it also has a kit script called UI Scene Home. They differ depending on the MMO and the others, I believe. But you'll find here that your script wants to know where the first UI is, and that will be UI main menu. And if you click on that, you'll find Canvas Home has got 4, in this case, sub-game objects with a variety of sub-game objects. They're all disabled, but these are your screens. UI main menu is the first screen. UI LAN connection is the LAN connection screen. Character list is your list of characters you own. Character create is the ability to create them. And how the interface works is it displays the first one there, enables it, shows it on the screen. And when you click on various buttons and it moves around, it disables the one and enables the other one to see them. You don't need to worry about whether these are enabled or disabled when you do a build. All of these game objects, the scripts, have a UI-based script with a hide on awake setting. They are all hidden when the game starts, and then shown based on the rules of whatever's happening here. So we'll enable one to have a look at it, and I don't need to worry about disabling afterwards, and you'll see it looks pretty familiar. There is a single player. It's got 3 little buttons. Each of these buttons calls the script in Canvas Home, the UI Home scene script, and calls a function in that script. So the first button runs on click single player, the second button runs on click multiplayer, and on click exit. So you can, these are images, plain image, plain button, and underneath each one it's got a bit of text with some stuff that you can change. You could rip these buttons out entirely and replace them with some other asset buttons. There's various different assets that make or have fancier buttons in them. And all you would need to remember is on-click runtime only for using the Canvas Home UI scene script. You would run whatever is the appropriate event. Exit, in this case, on-click single player. Now to change the images, I've got a couple of buttons here, so we'll just drop that in there, and boom, bam, we have a different image. It's about the easiest way of making the change. As I said, some of the more complicated button assets might have an image for button up, an image for button down, a button hover, button locked, button pressed, and you can see I've actually got images here in this asset for those sort of things, but this image just currently supports just one. Also note, if I try and drag, say, button locked, that won't work. Button locked is an editor, GUI, and legacy GUI. It doesn't want to be that. It wants to be a sprite 2D and UI. Easy enough if you've got these. Sometimes the older images or images just imported these. Drop it down, change it to sprite 2D, apply. And bam, this button then can be dragged to, I don't know, let's make button exit the locked color. Whoops, and boom, button exit is locked. Button multiplayer would look pressed, I don't know, it looks cool, or button hover. So we'll have a quick look at this. Various button transitions here. This is a standard Unity button. So single player, multiplayer, exit, all looks much better. So we'll have a look. Notice and you know, notice I think remember to disable UI main menu. Doesn't make any difference. So let's have a look at the character list. It's a little bit more complicated. Character UI connect or LAN connection is pretty basic. Same sort of thing, buttons and a text box. So we have a look at character list. And this is used in several places. This is a standard Unity GUI mechanism. Under a window, there is a title bar, a scroll view. And the scroll view is a list box, basically, with a viewport and content. Content contains whatever you're scrolling in the list box. The viewport is a view of the content. The scroll view just gives you a rect and a few other things. And then they have a scroll bar. Vertical sliding area handle. These are standard Unity GUI features. You probably need to look a little bit. We could obviously change all of those. Give that a go, and they see that it's not. It's still a legacy one. I want that to be a sprite. Sliding area. I'm not quite sure what I've changed there. I'm only just mucking around with it. But your text obviously can be changed. And this interface is just dealt with further back up. The UI character list has some scripts in it. It says which is the selection entries, all done by default in the kit. So if you're just changing the textures and moving things around and changing the anchors, that's all pretty simple. You'll find in a few places these events on the scripts. This particular script for this UI character list has an event which decides whether the create button is enabled or not. So the event is, you know, if when we enter the screen the character or the user is allowed to create a character, it makes the create button down here, which is this button here, enabled. If the user cannot create a character, it makes the create button disabled. So you'll find this in a few options that these events exist in the scripts, the kit scripts. They're all already set up, so it's usually not a major problem. The other thing, so we can change, edit, color, move, shift. We're all quite happy with that. Other thing, by default, you can see we've got this sort of gray background. There's a nice bunch of lines sliding off to the distance. This is a three-dimensional view. That's controlled by the ground extent area here. Ground lines are the lines we saw. Ground extent is just a great big gray disk. Ground area is just a holding game object. We can change these to a scene object. We could have a nice 3D scene in here. So when the game starts, it's a 3D scene of a, you know, whatever your world is, your castle in the background, rolling plains or something like that. So this is all obviously pretty just basic 3D stuff. Whatever image you change in here, there's the main camera is looking at it at that angle. Of course, you can change this main camera too and muck it around, move it around a bit. That won't change the interface, but it will change the view of the main scene you're looking at. But for example, let's say we don't really want that. We want a static background. So one way to create that, we'll create an empty game object. We'll call it background. And we will stick it up here at the top, just underneath the main camera. And we will put a canvas on. And we will say the main camera is the canvas. And with our screen space is the camera. So that places the canvas smack bang on facing the camera. And we will add a canvas scaler, which we will say scales with screen size. And we will also then add another game object. Call it background image, and in that game object we'll put a raw image And we'll just put a background image into that. Just make that size of the image, go 600 by 400. Yes. And we'll give that a go and see what we get out of that. Quite right, background. Oh, 800 by 600, not 600 by 400. We want 800 by 600. 800 by 600. There we go. And we should have a nice background image. Our characters will float over that image that we see. And, you know, we can create and edit and do whatever else we want. Click our back button. Log in, multiplayer, all the rest of the stuff with a background image. You can place these background images inside the Canvas home events if you prefer. They give a different image for each different screen. And one other thing we'll look at was when we looked at our character, by default there is a model, 3D model that animates here. That 3D model is placed at character container model. So which can be moved around or adjusted. So the character is placed at this spot. There we go, facing the wrong direction now. There's a rotation, so I don't know, we can move them. Let's not get too excited. And you can move that around, change the scaling, change the position. Remember, you can move your main camera around. See, they're not invisible now where I've dumped them. So, background 3D, background 2D, where all your physical screens are, your model container containing where the character sits. That's essentially the home screen. But if we look at the rest of the interface, have a look at scenes, we have a look under init, it's probably the best way to look at it. Look at the game instance. In your init scene, there will be several different prefabs where the user interface is found. So user interface, scene, gameplay, prefab. There's our gameplay prefab. There's our mobile version of the same prefab. And there's a few others that you'll be looking at. Owning character GUI. Owning character GUI is also another prefab. That's the interface that floats around the character if you are the character player. And there is also one for non-owned characters. So when you're looking at other characters, this is what the interface looks like. Obviously, we want to drag these prefabs out, put them into our own project. Monster characters have their own interface. Again, that's what the monster character interface looks like to other players. UI interface and quest indicator. So you can see there's a quest indicator here. This is where you would change your quest indicators. And there's your floating question mark for tasks done, tasks in progress, tasks new. This is basically text. I usually change these to 3D objects. You can have 3D objects, you can rotate them. So as long as you look at your quest indicator, have the tasks been done is linked to that game object. Progress is linked to that game object. New quest linked to that object. You can see there's a distance and an update rate. So this object here for new quests could contain whatever on earth you want. Yeah, add a component, add a, I don't know. Lots of stuff you could add to it. Images, models, prefabs, and whenever this appears, whenever an NPC has a new quest, this thing, this game object will be enabled over their head. So this is probably where a lot of your interfaces that you're going to be mucking around with, but the big ones are the US Canvas gameplay, which really should be dragged out and placed into your own project somewhere, possibly even renamed. But you can see it all looks exactly like how the game will look. If you look at button hero, this button hero is the text. It's a button. Um, change it to button player. Move all these things around. You'll see in similar to the main screen, there's a couple of things that are disabled. So this only appears when you've selected a character. Target character hit points. So, you know, we actually want target character hit points to appear over there whenever it appears. Target game entity name, I don't know, you want it to appear down there. And in gameplay here, you'll also see a few other things that you need to be interested in looking at. Combat hit and text messages, these are all prefabs. So normal damage, there's a prefab, and you know, that's it. That's what it looks like. How far it scales from the distance, the text component, how long it lasts, its lifetime, its format. You can change all of this stuff here for everything. MP, you know, recovery of mana, recovery of hit points, normal damage, miss damage, text miss. We can be a bit annoying about it. Criticals blocked. Again, if you're making these changes to this, you'll find them in Prefabs UI gameplay. Copy them out, put them somewhere else. Don't leave them there. You'll lose everything. So let's just have UI gameplay. Map is a circle here. So where's our maps? This warping system. Yeah, all of these windows, if they're grayed out, they're things that will pop up. So here you can see the UI window. It puts an image over the background to sort of grey it out. I've seen much better effects than this. You can have a sort of a glass-like effect whenever you pop up system menus. Make these changes here, remove things if you want them. Maybe there's no respawn option. Setting dialog. So all your settings are set up in here. So generally, if you find something that's grayed out like this, it's something that pops up over there. And also note, I've just seen that there's something like the system dialog does not hide on awake. So just be aware, if you accidentally leave this like that, when the game runs, it'll look like that. Won't hide. Current buildings. Your user interface keys. Icons, of course, are handled inside the actual game objects themselves. So if you have a weapon, there'll be a weapon icon in there. And just see if there's anything else. Generic layouts. Yeah, a lot of this stuff will have links. As I said, like Canvas gameplay will have various links to things. You know, what is the NPC dialogue? The NPC dialogue is that thing. What is the quest record? All dialogue. So this is how it links all the various UI prefabs to the events that occur. There's no current storage UI, current workbook UI. This can be added in by yourself. Crafting queue UI is down here. Party invitation UI is within the UI dialogues. You see there's a lot of dialogues in here. These are all separate pop-ups, so it's not popped up underneath UI dialogues, but say quest dialogue. There's your quest dialogue, quest list, quest item, with links here where the information goes within that user interface. Titles, close buttons. There's a lot to change when you start changing the interface. Borders, checks, Xboxes. So we have a look. Items. There's your interface for basically your character sheet. This block controller is related to actions. So while it's popped up, the actions are disabled. various events on selection, deselecting, which you can add scripts and code to. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff in there to look at. But your two primary are the home, and then when you look at init game instance, you're really interested in the gameplay prefab. Gameplay mobile is the same stuff, but mobile designed. So you can see your buttons for mobile, buttons, mobile move. There's a lot of simplified things. Yeah. The main issue, of course, with this is if you do decide to support mobile and standalone, you're going to have to change both of these. But, you know, such is life. The joy of games. So that is about it. Someone's contacted me on Discord. I'm going to leave it there. If anyone's got any specific questions, let me know, and I can do some more videos covering more unique aspects of user interface design. Anyway, I'm going to work on another one now on some quests and I think some server updates. So have a good one. Talk later. Cheers.